Relax it, we'll be better next time I try. And even if I still can't do it, yeah, you know that I'm gonna stick to it. Yes, it's all about going through it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Whoopsie, whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo! Whoopsie, 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 whoopsies.
I'm a little embarrassed when I look at my drawing compared to this. I'm just not getting anywhere with this. It makes me wanna hide. Aw, don't be embarrassed. Don't hide.
You should have seen mine the first time I tried. It took a lot of whoopsies to look this way.
No one's perfect on their first day. Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay.
It's okay. Whoopsies are what it takes to get better and better every day. Whoopsie, 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 whoopsie.
Well, what about this? I want to jump rope, but nope, I just can't do it.
Well, not yet. Come on and practice with me. You'll see there's nothing to it.
Whoa! Whoopsie.
Whoopsies, I made a mistake and it's okay. It's okay. Whoopsies, help me look, see, I'm better at this today. Woo!
It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. I know it's hard to follow before it's too late. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me. It's hard. Wake up. It was only a dream, the waves of evil crashing over us. It was only a weak and faithful scream beneath the battlements. But I know it's hard to follow before it's too dark. Wake up, my love, please don't give up on me.
What is up? What is up, you guys? We are back at it again. Another epic day here in 100 Days of Rootkit. We are officially past the halfway point. Alright, this is an exciting time. We can see the end in sight. Alright, we have never been closer. Alright, this is super epic. We got a lot of fun stuff here planned for us. We've done so much already. You guys have learned so much already. It's insane. And we're about to just do it all over again with a new epic journey. All right. I talked to the customer a little bit, yelled at them, they yelled at me. We got in a little fight, you know, fists were thrown, but we came to an agreement on some new programs they want us to make. So we're going to be hard at work making them for the next 50 days. All right, we're going to make a couple programs this week. Then we're going to jump into a new programming language. All right, we're going to jump into C. We're going to program into C. I'm going to give you guys cancer all over again. Good news, once you know one programming language, you know them all. All right, we're going to learn some new concepts about data structures in computer science and pointers. All right, and you're going to absolutely hate me for introducing you to pointers. Then after that, we're gonna have another program we need to make. We'll be switching back over to Python, and we will be learning about databases, be connecting to databases, and then be utilizing them in our application. And then towards the end of our 100 days here, we're gonna also touch on a little bit on REST endpoints, how to make them, how to use them, HTML and CSS. So making some web pages. All right, they're not going to be beautiful web pages. We don't got time to teach you how to make things beautiful. All right, they're going to be web pages though. All right, they're going to be web pages with a little bit of color here and there, but it's going to be a good next journey for us in these 50 days. You guys are going to make some epic applications, especially now that we've learned and established our knowledge on classes. Yeah, I know you still might be a little confused, shaken up, not really comprehend it. Don't worry. With all the practice we're going to be doing, because the next 50 days is just programming and making things and testing things. We're gonna have lots of time to learn and fortify these concepts. So don't you worry. If you don't know already, we are Rootkit, a non-profit here based in the US of A. If my tab will load here. And we have the industry's best comp sci cert. All right, so come to us, get it, skip college, skip any other boot camp. All right, college, 100K, 4 years of your life gone. All right, this, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, not tens of thousands of dollars, $300 for the cert. But if you guys haven't seen already, I did put out in the 100 Days of Rootkit chat, all of you guys that are participating right now during the 100 Days of Rootkit. So if you're watching this on YouTube after the 100 Days of Rootkit, sadly, you're not going to be included in this, all right? But for all of you guys that have been watching, and for all of you guys that have been chatting, we've logged, we've seen, we know everyone's name. You guys will all be waived. You guys will all have the cert waived. Our website is changing right now, and they will cost money. They're $2.99 at the end of this week. All right, they will cost money at the end of this week, but you guys will all get waived. Super epic benefits, I know. So you get 100% certified for free. You're watching here, get the cert for free, and then you get a job that's gonna pay you some good money. What a great deal! My God, I wish this was being offered when I was trying to get in the dev sphere. I was having to bend over backwards for some of these people, all right? Making just scrap money. All right, so let us see here. On top of all this free stuff we're doing, over on our blog, we have our week 8 giveaway going on. If you go over there, you can enter, all right? You can enter to win. It's super easy. Let me log out from the example yesterday. All you have to do is enter your email. Why an email? Well, how else are we supposed to contact you and send out your prizes? Come on. All you have to do is basic free things. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Twitch, and some basic other social media followings. Each one, you don't have to do them all. Each one will give you more and more entries, so you increase your odds at winning. Additionally, if you like what we're doing and you want to help support us, if you go to the link in the description of the video, or if you're on Twitch somewhere in our bio, you'll see that there's 100 days of Rootkit donation going on. We're a non-profit, so everything you donate is tax deductible, all right? Is 100% tax deductible. So let us be your tax haven. Don't pay the gov any taxes, all right? Just donate to us a bunch of money. There we go. And we got you. We got you covered. Additionally, depending on how much you donate, you can unlock rewards like our Epic stickers, our collab t-shirt, and this awesome, sexy sweater. Look at this thing, all right? Male or female, you wear this thing, you're gonna look 10 out of 10 every single time, all right? Even has the Rootkit logo on the back, all right? Look at me. Don't I look like a 10 out of 10? I might as well be a Victoria's Secret model, my God. All right, we have, all donations are being matched 1-for-1 for the first 10,000 donations. That comes in at the end of every single month. Additionally, we have other pillars that we hit along the way, like teaching for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and the one no one wants to see, so we don't need to get that far, all right, is shaving my beard here on stream, but no one wants to see that. That's all my powers are, you know, I'll become dumb. Kwai says 11 out of 10 now. That's what I'm talking about, all right? That's what I'm talking about. Hey, we made the cut. Yeah, so this goes for anyone that's joining for the next 49 days too, all right? As long as we're streaming and we're live, and if you're watching this on YouTube and not live, let us know you're watching. Put a message in the 100 Days of Rootkit chat on the Discord, all right? So we know, all right? Don't be left out. Alrighty, so we got some stuff to talk about today. The customer has some more stuff they want us to make. Before we move forward, let's go over and, whoops, not the Python one. Let's go ahead and look at our comp sci cert here, all right? Let's look at our comp sci cert. So in here, by the way, we have covered a couple items in the advanced comp sci cert, which is preferred if you can get this one. It is definitely preferred. We're not going to really be teaching it much. We did go over Docker. All right, so it is preferred. The Golang is, we haven't touched this in a while. I'm sorry, you guys. We haven't touched this cert in a while. Golang is not required, but you will need to know an additional language. And in the data stuff will be NoSQL databases, which we're not going to cover here. In this one, we're only going to be covering SQL databases. I believe I'll have to look at my notes. And some extra formats. We'll hit on some of the formats, but it's not very much extra. Mostly the big thing is Docker, all right? This comp sci cert and the advanced one are both on the same tier of certs. They're level 2 certs, so they're not going to be that much more complex from each other. There's just a couple additional requirements that are very in demand by a lot of our actual customers, all right? They really want people to know Docker, really bad. So let us move on here. So programming fundamentals. There's a couple things we need to talk about in here. We'll get to the development lifecycle in a little bit later on, but for the most part, we've covered all of this. We've covered all of this except for pseudocode. All right, we got to talk about pseudocode for a second. So what is pseudocode? Great question. Google be thy answer. All right, unless you're switching to Bing. All right, because Bing has GPT integration into it now. So maybe that's the new takeover. So pseudocode is something that resembles programming, but it isn't. It's usually language, real language that you type out and you basically state what you're going to do. All right. So it's you writing in normal English and trying to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to go about making your program. This is a step a lot of people will take before they start writing their programs, and it might be helpful for you moving forward. All right, it might be helpful for you moving forward. Should have probably talked about it a little bit more earlier on, but that was my bad on that one. I kept just glancing over it. All right, so pseudocode can really help you. We'll give some examples of that here in a second. Yeah, those ones. we won't hit on just yet. We've talked a little bit about this stuff already, in particular with Git, but we'll talk about them a little bit more later, and same thing with this. All right. So the customer came back to us, all right? They like what we're doing, and for some reason, you know, everyone and their dog wants to get into making games, all right? That's just how it is. So now they're saying they want to get into games too, for some weird reason. So they said they want us to make a simple terminal-based game that's going to be not a dungeon crawler. What is it called? Would it be more like a roguelike? Basically, you're gonna spawn and you're gonna have to keep killing things until you die and see how far you can get along. That's basically the game. All right. There's a game mode for it. If you know what it is, you just go ahead and say it. Did you say Victoria's Secret model? Yes, that is what I said. I did not stutter on that at all. All right. If you know the game mode, just put it in chat and help educate me. All right. So they want us to make a game effectively where you spawn in your character in the terminal and you're playing, and you need to go murder, massacre, destroy, blood everywhere, gore. It's going to be a very violent game. All right, we're going to make an extremely violent game where you need to just kill things. What those things are, they didn't specify, so it's up to us. But you need to murder stuff and keep murdering until you die. All right, keep murdering till you die. So there's a lot of possibilities we can do in here. They want some type of drop system. They didn't specify what exactly they want in the drop system, but they want some type of drop system so you can get items after you fight. No way to, like, quote unquote heal yourself besides items that are potentially dropped. And as you move along, things need to progressively get harder and harder and harder. All right, so it can't just be, it needs to be linear in the difficulty. All right, linear in the difficulty. So we gotta look at some pictures real quick because we gotta clarify and talk about some math stuff. All right, math, I know, don't worry, it's pictures. Math with pictures. You just need to know these terms. All right, so if we go here and say linear graph. When I say something is linear, there's line in it. It means there's a line with an ear. All right, not really near, but a line. All right, linear graph. This is the progression for your game. If you want, you need to do this. If you want to make a game, or if you played a game, you've seen this before. You know, as you're progressing, how do things get more difficult? All right, that's the big question. So for linear progression, it's going to be a linear line. How do you produce something that's going to give you linear progression? God, that is rough. Multiplication. That's it. Simple multiplication. So if you want things to get 5% harder with every single mob that you kill, you would multiply everything by 5%, or it would be 0.05. All right, 0.05, 5% to get more and more difficult every time. All right, that is linear progression. There's also these concepts of exponential. Can you guess what exponential progression would mean? Exponential. That's right, we use an exponent instead. And this will dramatically increase and pretty much just absolutely skyrocket. All right, whenever scammers and stuff are advertising to you about your returns, they'll usually throw words around like you can get exponential growth on your returns and become a billionaire in 5 years. All right, this is what they're talking about. They're going to show you a graph just like this. Exponential growth means that you are using an exponent for your growth. So for example, this is 2 to the x. All right, x is the exponent. This would be potentially like how many mobs you've killed. All right, so as you kill more mobs, this number will grow and their difficulty will grow. This is a pretty typical, exponential growth is pretty typical for your XP that you get in games. If you want to know what algorithm games use for their XP systems or whatever, most of them can usually be found and are documented. So let's say Pokemon XP system. So I'm going to assume most of you guys know what Pokemon is, or you've played Pokemon before. And we can kind of look at the graphs here. Can I get a prettier picture here? Bud, why you doing me dirty here? This is exponential. How do you know it's exponential? Well, it's not linear, I'll tell you that. It would be a lie if it was linear. But you can see it's going up faster and faster and faster as we go across, all right? It starts very, very small and then it's going up. They use exponential growth. They're not just using a straight up exponent though. Are they using cubical growth? So 3 is going to be cube. So they lay out right here how they go about it, all right? How they go about it. So you can copy this over into your game and literally use this straight up. How would you be going about copying this in your game? Well, we've already learned all of programming is technically math, and at the calculus level. This is not calculus, so it's super, super easy to do it. So since we got to be making another game, I'll go ahead and show you guys how you would be going about copying this type of stuff. All right. So for example, let's pull up our code and let's make a new, okay. Now I lied. All right, let's go to GitHub first. All right, let's go to GitHub first, and let's call this dungeon crawlers. Should we call it dungeon crawler? We don't really have a dungeon. Whatever. We're gonna call it dungeon crawler. We're gonna make a dungeon crawler game. So go ahead and go over to your GitHub. All right, and make a new repo. So a little plus here, new repo. In this repo, we're gonna call it dungeon. Oh, what have I done? Dungeon crawler. You cannot have well, yeah, you can. You're not allowed to have spaces in your repo name. They have to be with tags, or you can just use camel case. All right, so go and make this. You can make it public, and I would highly recommend you click this button here for add a readme file. All right, and you can add a git ignore template if you want. So remember that git ignore file. It's used so commonly that GitHub will auto-generate one with a bunch of the most commonly ignored things. It's based off language, so if we go in here and type in Python, you'll see one for Python. We'll click on that, so we'll automatically get a git ignore and a readme file. Super awesome, super convenient. So go here, again, make a new repo, add a readme to it by clicking the checkbox, and then add a git ignore, find Python, and click on that. And we're going to go ahead and create this repo. Sweet, we got our repo here. Now we want to clone it onto our local machine. So what we're going to do is click on this green code button, make sure this is on HTTPS, copy this link, and now we're going to go over to our code here, and we're going to do a git clone and paste this link and press enter. All right, git clone, then paste that link and press enter. Sweet, we have successfully cloned this game into our editor here, and you'll see that new folder pops up called dungeon crawlers in here. If we open it up, you'll see our readme is in here and our git ignore, and there's a lot of stuff in the git ignore because it automatically puts a lot of the most common items in here. All right, y'all can read this novel later on your own time if you're very interested in. Alrighty. Not Dabber says, what's this? Oh, we're making our next game. All right, we're gonna be doing a dungeon crawler. All right, so next thing is we're on this repo. In our terminal though, we're not. We're in the parent folder. At least that's how I have mine set up right here. So I'm in the parent folder, so I need to go into the dungeon crawlers folder. So I need to cd into dungeon crawlers. Once I'm in there, let's see, if we do a git status, you're gonna see we're on the main branch. Remember, we don't want to be messing around with the main branch, so let's immediately switch to a dev branch, all right? So I'm gonna do a git checkout tac b. That's how we make the new branch, remember, tac b, and then dev, all right? We're gonna press enter. We have now made the branch and it automatically switched us to it. Now remember, this only exists locally, so we need to push everything up so we can synchronize the remote server. So if we do a git push, this will fail because that's not the proper command when you make a new branch, but it will always output the proper command for it, all right? I've never remembered this command. So just say git push, copy and paste, all right? Copy and paste, developer's best friend. Let's press enter with the command that it told us to run, and now we're all good. We're all set up now. The remote server is in sync with us. If we refresh our Dungeon Crawler page and look at the branches here, we'll see dev is in here now. I'm gonna give you guys like 2 seconds to catch up, just in case any of you guys are lagging behind a little bit. Man, I miss a week of lives or two, and now you're doing some crazy math. All right, we're not doing any math. I'm just gonna give an example of how you can translate it. All right, we have not done anything with math, all right, so far. We are going to be making, I don't know, maybe an XP system. I don't know if we're going to make it immediately, but I want to show, you know, how you can go about copying other systems that are already out there, all right? So if you don't know, or you don't want to spend the time to find a good XP balance for your game, you can just copy other ones that exist, all right? Just copy other ones that exist. All right, I hope that was enough time for you guys that were following along. All right, so we're on our dev branch now. Sweet. Now I'll give an example of copying this over. I'm going to make a new file in here. And I'm going to call this main.py. I'm not going to use this in our game. I just wanted us to set up the Git repo so I could add my code in here first. I'm going to move these Python files into this folder so it's not distracting anyone. There we go. Did I move my... God. All right, I'm gonna make another main.py. Why is it making it in there? Holy crap. There we go. Main.py. There we go. All right, so let's show, you know, if you were interested and you barely understand what math is, that's fine. You can still copy this, right? Remember, 1 bit at a time. So variables, we've been messing with variables all of the time, non-stop. We've been making variables. This is the first thing we taught in programming, all right? What is a variable? A placeholder for some type of value. You can call it whatever you want to call it, all right? You can call it whatever you want to call it. So for example, this fast XP system has a variable here. How do you know which one's the variable? Well, it's the one that's not a number, all right? It's the n. So we can say n is equal to, what is it equal to? Well, n is equal to most likely your level, all right? Your level. So this is how much XP you need to finish that level. So if you are level 1, we'll just put in a level 1 here. Now, you're in programming, so you don't need to put in just n, you know, you could call this just level, all right? Makes more sense, all right? But just know, leave yourself a comment that n is equal to level in this little thing right here, all right? So, you gotta think back, all right? Think back for a second. Whenever there's a number and then another letter, that's multiplication. All right, so we're just gonna solve this from, let me scroll down. I wanted to zoom in a little bit more here. We're gonna solve this from the top. All right, solve this. We're gonna copy it from the top first. We'll worry about the fraction, division stuff later. All right. What we got going on here is we have 4 times our level, right? 4 times our level, and then it's to the power of 3. Remember, to multiply is 1 asterisk. To do the power of is 2 asterisks. So we could do 2 asterisks and then a 3. All right. And to make sure this executes properly, I'm going to be putting parentheses around level and the power of here, because remember in math, we have PEMDAS, and anything's in parentheses should execute first, then exponents. So we would hope this would execute first in our programming language, but sometimes we want to make sure of it. So this is just a way we can make sure of it. So we just finished copying how Pokemon does fast XP right here. This is the top part though, all right? It's all over 5. Now, come on. You guys all passed basic math, right? Fractions are the equivalent of doing division. That's right, division. So if we want to divide all this, we just do divide and then 5. All right, divide and then 5. Again, we want to trust the programming language, but let's verify and enforce computation of this top part of the fraction, all right, by just putting parentheses around it. All right, let's just put parentheses around it just to make sure that is being done first before the division is. Congratulations, you've now copied a Pokemon XP system. So if we see here right now, if we go ahead and do a print and print this out, we're going to see that it is 0.8. All right, 0.8 XP for getting to level 1. All right, seems a little odd to me. So maybe we copied it wrong, maybe we copied it right. I'm not quite sure. We can also do something like level 10 and then rerun this, and now it's 800 XP. All right, maybe it is right. I don't know. All right, I don't know. This is for you to then figure out what you want to do with it and how you want to go about it. This obviously is right here. So this was used for generation 1 with 800k experience points, making for a level 10 Pokemon, or sorry, level 100. So if we do level 100 here, look at that. We get 800k. So we did right. We did copy this correctly, right? We did copy this correctly because it says you should have 800,000 experience for level 100, and we can see right here we have 1, 2, 3 numbers, so that's 6 numbers total. So we know this is going to be 800,000. Any questions on that? I'm not saying we're going to use this. I'm about to delete it. I just wanted to run you guys through an example of how you can go about copying this stuff, all right? You don't need to know math. You can just copy the math from elsewhere. You see the picture right in the programming part right here, and there you go. Like how you apply math to programming. Very, very cool. Well, technically we're always applying math. We just don't really notice it until it's this type of math, all right? But technically you're always doing this type of math. You just don't notice it until it's pointed out like this, especially if you want to make a game. So like I said, there's lots of XP algorithms everywhere. So you can figure out what you want to do and what's more appropriate. Pokemon one's probably one of the nicest, only because every level is laid out. So you can see like very clearly like when you might want to put major pillars in your game, like what level, and you can kind of figure out how difficult it would be for people. And there's not much to like really figure out, because contrary to popular belief, you can't just say you're gonna use this math formula and then just program everything else out just willy-nilly. You got to think about how much XP are they getting, and then also figure out if they kill, how long does the average person last in the game, and if they kill X amount of things, how long does that take, and how much XP do they get from that? Because you don't want, unless you're trying to go for like an endless dungeon game, or you're trying to go for a really long difficult game, most people want to be able to finish a game in, if they're playing 8 hours a day, which is, like a weekend, for example, they want to finish it in 1 to maybe 3 weekends. All right, playing 8-hour days. So 2 days for up to 3 weeks. So how many hours is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 times 8 is going to be 43. No, that doesn't seem right. 42? 6 times 8. 48. My bad. Oh god. I use a calculator, you guys. All right, I use a calculator a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not in school anymore. I just use a calculator for everything. But the point is, you want to calculate that number out, and so when you look at your mobs in your game, or we're using a lot of game examples, but this goes for other applications that you're making, not just games. You can then figure out how long you want these systems to take people, and you should adjust the XP given based off of that. All right, because again, you don't want to make something unpleasant. You also don't want to make something too easy, because then there's not much of a reward of accomplishing anything. All right, so that's basically the rundown here for the XP system and how you guys can go about researching that type of stuff. All right, let's get into our game here. All right, I'm gonna open the window because I'm dying. Oh, it's so hot. Stay sober. Perfect. This would work, right? Yes, that will work, right? 100%. The only thing is, like how I have right here, I have the extra set of parentheses for this, just because I don't trust computers that much. They sometimes do things that are really weird. So anytime I can force them to do the exact behavior I want, I'll go about doing that. So that should work. I would just also maybe put around parentheses right here just to make sure it works. But all right, let's move on here, shall we? Our game, Dungeon Crawler. We need a person, and we need mobs. And periodically we should make like a boss mob, and they need a loot system. Let's go ahead and bring out paint, all right? Or we could do it our pseudocode, all right? What is pseudocode again? Pseudocode is fake code that you just write in English. That's a very, very high level overview, all right? We can do it all in comments. So we know we need a player. We need some mobs. We don't know what those mobs are right now. We'll figure it out. All right. We need the, what do you call it? We need bosses, and we know that we need to be mobs need to and bosses need to drop loot. There should probably be like stuff like weapons, right? What else? I'd say let's not do a gold system, because we can just do RNG only. All right, RNG only. XP. Should we do XP? Let's write XP here. Because yeah, we could have base stats level up. So I mean, this again goes into your design decisions when you make any application, not just a game, how you want to do stuff like XP. You could have XP where base stats level up over time, or you could just not have it, so you're always the same base and you depend highly on loot, or you can do a mixture of both. So we'll do XP right here. Let's see. We need combat. Lots of gore. All right, lots and lots of gore. Let's see what else. Maybe a score system. So a scoring system. So we know how far we've gone, maybe how much damage we've done, how much damage we've taken. Let's go and say that. Damage done, damage taken, levels completed. All right. Technically, every floor would be a level. So a level system, question mark, for the floors. All right. So this is going to be like a, yeah, potentially main menu. That's right. Main menu. All right. So I think this is good for now. All right. This is good for now. The point is, first start with a high level overview of, everything that you have going on. You can get more in depth than this, but you should have at least this at a minimum, kind of listing out everything you're doing. Now below it, this is where we're going to write kind of more of our pseudocode here on the logic we'd be going about it. So player starts the game, player or menu displays for the user, and then the menu options would be start game, view high, or I guess just view scores, and let's say quit game. All right, if they start the game, load floor 1. Well, if they start the game loop, I should say. All right, because we always need a game loop. I'm gonna go and just comment these. There we go. So we start the game loop. When we start the game loop, we want to, at the beginning of every game loop, first load the floor, spawn the enemy, fight the enemy, and then what? So if enemy is dead, then loot enemy and let player use any items. All right, so we got some of our pseudocode going on right here. All right, so this is literally how we're going to program out our game. Literally program it out in this exact fashion. Player will start the game. When they start the game, we need some logic to display the menu. We should have at least 3 menu items like start the game, view scores, quit the game. When someone starts the game, so if the person starts the game, we need to enter into the game loop. What is the game loop going to be? That's right, a while loop. All right, you know how to do a while loop. When we loop, all right, so through one loop of the while loop, all of these things underneath will happen. All right, we will load the next floor, we will spawn an enemy. We can have it so right now with this, we're gonna have it so it's kind of like an auto fight system. So we will automatically fight the enemy. If the enemy is dead, then we can loot the enemy, and then we can use any items that are potentially in our inventory. I guess we should also have some logic here, right? If we die, so if player dies, then we should be saving scores, go back to main menu, right? And that's our game. That's our game. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complex. We have it pretty much all written here. All right, we see already where we're going to have some if statements, where we're going to have some while loops going on. It looks like we need some logic for this stuff. Let's see, you need XP, I guess boss. Yeah, so I guess in our load floor logic here, we're going to need to know whether the enemy is going to be a boss or it's going to be a normal mob. And we're not going to be making a UI. We're going to be doing it all in the CLI. We're not going to use Pygame. How do you use, how do you have a save system? The save systems, we talked about it last week. We'll be using that stuff all over again. All right, just look here. All right, so this looks like a pretty decent game. All right, now when we look at this, we just learned about what? We just learned about classes and how classes can be used to manufacture objects, right? Can be used to manufacture objects. Now, do you guys see any potential objects here? All right, potential objects here we could have in our game. Well, player is an object, a potential object. Mobs are. Bosses are. Bosses are a type of mob, so maybe we should be doing some type of inheritance for this one. Drop loots. So that could be like some loot tables that we have in our logic here, because we have to know what can drop what and potentially at what percentage they drop those. All right, you ever looked at your loot crates and stuff? They're legally obligated to post the percentages of how common the drop rates for items are. It's literally just a list. You guys have made lists before that will say what the percentages of everything is. We need weapons. Well, weapons are great for making classes. All right. XP system. Maybe not. This is its own object. This could be potentially just something that's attached to the player. Combat may not need to be its own object. It may be just something that's attached to players and mobs that they're able to do. Scoring system. This could be potentially an object. All right. The level system could be potentially an object too. Maybe these are combined together. I don't know. We'll see. And then there's main menu, which could definitely be its own object. All right. Its own class that we can make for the main menu stuff. So let's see here. So let's see. Let's just put some marks here. Let's do asterisk here, asterisk here, asterisk here, question mark here, asterisk here, question mark here, asterisk, asterisk here, and asterisk here. So anything with an asterisk is something we should definitely make a class for. Anything with a question mark, we can think about it a little bit more when we get to it. These two, I'll put a question mark on both of these, because we will either be making one object or we'll be making two different objects for this. All right. Also, I am in the events chat for anyone that's a Discord Premium or Patreon sub. You can jump in there anytime and ask any questions. So I think we're good here. We kind of have a plan. We kind of understand what we're supposed to do. And now we can start tackling that. All right, now we can start tackling it. This will be your design phase. We did this really, really quick, but in the real life, this could potentially take an hour, a day, a week. All right. It shouldn't really take a month unless it's like something massive that you have a lot of complicated things coming into it. All right. You know, it always depends, but it's okay if this takes a little bit of time, because it's best to thoroughly think through things beforehand and figure out how you're going to go about it, so you don't potentially run into issues later on. All right. So you don't run into issues later on that will cost you time, because then, you know, you might save yourself time at the beginning because you're kind of rushing to it, but you're going to pay for it with lots of extra time later on because you didn't think through it properly. And so you're going to end up, you know, the goal is to be as lazy as possible, which means you work on this and you do the least amount of work for the least amount of time. If you don't do some preparation beforehand, you can't be lazy later. All right. You're going to screw yourself and be working on this for a longer amount of time than you want to. So let us move on here, shall we? All right. So I'm going to copy this stuff. I'm going to make a new file in here called our pseudocode. Is that what I'm going to just do SE code, or I should say design doc.txt. All right, design doc.txt. We'll go ahead and paste this in here. All right, so we can just refer to this later because I am going to remove it here in our main.py. So the next step, again, for any time you're taking it on a big project, making something new, look, where's our pin? There you go. Here, hold on, let me pull this up. There we go. There's your motto. All right, there's your motto. One bit at a time. All right. So don't get overwhelmed. Don't think about how this is a big thing, how it's complicated, how you might have not figured out like all of the small balancing features yet. You know, just take a breath. One bit at a time. What's the first thing we should do? Well, how about we just do a print statement and say, print, welcome to my dungeon game, right? Congrats. We have taken the first step of our program, all right? We've taken this first step. Now we can just take another step. At this point, let's go ahead and do a git commit, all right? Let's do an official save. Let's do a git add all. Let's do a git commit. And, oh, whoops, I got a CD into the dungeon. Clear git add all, git commit. And let's go ahead and say my first step into an epic journey. All right, we'll close that off and we'll go ahead and do a git push. Perfect. We've now accomplished step number 1. All right, we're printing the intro to our game. We're printing the intro to our game. So before we go any further, let's take a look at our notes here. Player starts the game. Well, we've done that. We're already finished that whole point. We have a way for them to start the game. Next is displaying a menu. And we have 3 items to display on our menu here. All right. You can go about this lots of different ways. We're going to go about it the most overkill way possible. Why? Because we need to practice classes. All right. So we're going to go do this very much overkill. So we can use classes. But the great part about overkill is this will be something you can easily copy into other programs, games, whatever you end up doing with it. All right. Let's see here. Yep, this is only text-based. Graphics are a lot of wasted time. We're not here to do graphic development. We're here to program. All right. So, what's the next step we take here? We need to make a menu. And we've already decided that our menu is going to be a class. All right? Our menu is going to be a class. So, let's make a new file here. And let's call this our menu.py. All right. This is going to hold our menu class and our menu logic. So the next baby step we need to take here is just make a class. All right. Class menu. And bam. We know when we make a new class, we usually always want to have that def init. So let's go ahead and do def init __ self. And let's just do a pass in here because we don't know what we want in our menu just yet. So let's think about it a little bit. All right, let's think about it a little bit. A menu is going to have items. It should display those items. And it should then let you basically use those items as links. So if you were to click on that item or select that item, for example, you should be able to activate whatever that item is. And I guess when you are displaying it, it should display options for you to be able to select them. Like, do you want item number 1, 2, or 3? All right. Now, thinking about this and thinking about it and looking at your design docs and back, you might realize, I know we need a main menu, but a menu system, if made open and abstract enough, could be a perfectly suitable menu system candidate for maybe items, a menu of what to do with items, a menu to do with the end of the game. You could potentially make this into a menu that is versatile and usable in multiple places. All right. So that's one of the cool, great things about our objects here, especially if we make them correctly. So again, let's go ahead and in comments, let's list out what we need. We need menu should be able to hold items, like menu items, hold menu items, host hold menu items. Those items should be executable in the sense that, like, if I select one, it should then perform an action like exiting the game or starting the game. And then additionally, they should be selectable. Items should be selectable, right? So we can select which item we want. So it should be able to, I guess, store custom menu items. Those items should be executable. Items should be selectable. And then should be able to display items. All right, so we got a couple things here, right? We got a couple things here. So let's kind of think about this a little bit before we start programming, because we might be then now very overwhelmed because we have a whole game to make. But now we're starting with just the menu, and now we're like, oh, it's so much. I don't know if I can do it. You can do it. All right, you can always do it. Just gotta take it one step at a time. So let's go with thing number one. All right, menu items should be storable. What does that mean? Our menu, we want it to be dynamic in the sense that at the main, if it's going to be the main menu, it should have items added to it that are for starting the game, viewing the scores, and exiting. If it's in the middle of the game when we're deciding what to do with the player items, like drink potions, eat food, whatever, we should be able to load those items in. All right, load those items in. So it looks like we may need some type of maybe an array, possibly, to store all the menu items, right? To store all the menu items. So let's go ahead and start there, right? These are going to be given to us after the fact. So we know that since they're going to be given to us after the fact, we'll want to accept them one at a time. So we should also probably have a function. So we need a way to store them, so a variable to store this data, and we should have a function that allows people to add items to that array. All right. So if we go in here, let's go ahead and do a self dot, and let's call this menu items, maybe menu items, and we'll have that equal to an empty array. So by default, our items in our menu are going to be empty. All right, they're going to be empty. There's going to be nothing in there. So now we want people to be able to add items to the menu, but we don't want them to really add them directly. But I don't think we need also custom getters and setters right now. So we'll just do another type of middleman where we just have a function called add menu item. And this is going to take whatever they want potentially displayed out. All right, so this is going to be called, I don't know, let's just say text, right? This is the text of whatever menu they want, menu item they want. And now we need to add this to the array. So we're going to say self.menu items. And to add things to array, remember we have append. So we'll say dot append. This will append a new item to the array. And inside here, we're going to say we want to add text. All right. So we've now made and accomplished this task, right? This task is now done. So let's go ahead and try this out. Let's see what we just did. Let's see the fruit of our labors here. So first thing we need to do is we need to import menu. Double check the chat here. We need to import menu. And now we need to make a new menu object. So we're going to call our new menu object, let's call this main menu equals, and then this is big menu. So remember, since we're not getting menu from this by using a from, we're using an import, it's all going to be wrapped up in this name right here, this menu name. So if we do menu and then dot, you'll see our menu class is right here. And we got to do those parentheses, right? We've now made a menu, right? We've now made a menu. So if we want to print our menu right now, we can do print main menu dot menu items, right? Print menu items. And if we run this, you'll see that we print an empty array, right? So things are working so far. Things are working so far. We have our little intro. We are making a menu object here, and we are printing an empty array because we haven't added anything to our menu items here. To add things, we want to use the add menu item, right? That's the most proper way to add them. So right here, we'll say main menu dot add menu item, and let's add something called, I don't know, start game, right? Start game. And if we rerun this, you'll see that we get our array printed out, and now it says start game. All right, so we have a working menu here. It may not complete all the tasks we need right now, but it is one step in the right direction. And that's all you have to do, is you just need to take one baby step at a time. All right. Yep. What's up, Kamal? I'm going to stop here for a second so you guys can catch up and ask any questions. All right. So go ahead, ask any questions, catch up on your code. Do you need me to show the other screen? Go and put in chat if you need me to show the other screen. So while you guys are catching up, it's okay to make classes in objects that are used only once. All right? Yeah, you're good, Kwai. We're not going to progress for another minute or so. Yes, other screen. All right, here you go. So it's okay to make classes and objects that are only used once. All right, it is okay to do that. All right, it is okay to do that. The best thing is to do that in a lot of situations, because a class is very structured and organized and it looks very clean. All right, because your code can become very overwhelming and unstructured and like crazy. So when you have structures in it, like classes, even if they're only used once to make one object, it still looks really good overall, because it makes more sense. It's easier for someone to potentially understand and jump into your code base. All right. So try to use classes whenever you can. All right. Try to use classes whenever you can. A great example of how things can feel kind of chaotic and crazy is go look at our AI aimbot. There's no classes in there for a reason. It's supposed to be as simplistic of a layout as possible, but the more simplistic you are, potentially the longer the code is and the crazier it may look. Yep, there you go. So we're going to start talking about our next steps here. So our next step here is, this is displaying like a raw array right now. You know, this isn't probably what we want to be displaying as our actual menu, because we don't want to show people that are playing our game an actual array value here, right? That's no bueno. Now you may be tempted to display them in a nicer way here in your main.py, right? In your main file. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you are going to if you're going to be doing something like displaying the menu properly, that should be the menu's job. The menu's job should be displaying properly. All right. So you should add that code to the menu on how you want to display things properly, right? On how you want to display things properly. Now, there's a couple ways you can go about this, just like pretty much most of the stuff that we're going to talk about here. We're going to show one of those possibilities, one of those ways you can go about this. All right. So we go back to the menu. The easiest way to go about this is to have something called, make a new function here, right? And we're going to call this display menu. You could call it print menu. You could call it anything you want. This will be what they run to display the menu, right? We're going to put a self here. And then we're simply going to do a for loop. We're going to say for item in self.menu items. All right. So we're going to go and loop through every single one of our menu items. We're going to go ahead and print our item out. All right. We're just going to go ahead and print that item out. So we can modify this all we want here and everywhere that we have references to our menu object. This will update the look and feel of our menu. All right. So that's super, super nice and super, super awesome. So if we go over here, we can remove our print and instead we can say main menu dot display our menu and then rerun this and you'll see, there we go. Let me clear this first and rerun this and you'll see that we got a nicer look here now. All right, we don't have those brackets anymore here because it's not displaying the array, it's just displaying the actual string. And if we want to test it out on how it looks with multiple items, we can copy this line here, our add menu item, and we can add another menu item here. What's the other one we want? We want scores and another one called quit, right? Quit. All right, if we run that, you'll see that our menu is now starting to take shape, starting to take form. We can see that we have start game, scores, quit. They're all printing out on their own line. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. Any questions on that? So I think we're about ready to now move on to our next to do here in our menu stuff, right? Which is going to be, let's not do this one yet. Let's go ahead and do items should be selectable. Right now, our items show on the screen, but we don't know which one is what. Like, how do you select them? Well, in the terminal, it's easiest if you have, you say 1, 2, or 3 for the first, second, or third item. So to make it a little bit more clear to the user, we can put 1 in front of start game, 2 in front of scores, and 3 in front of quit. So it makes a lot of sense to them on which one they should be selecting and like what number goes with what, right? So since we're doing our code in this nice little fashion here, we don't have any numbers that are being tracked anywhere. But we know this is a list and we have a for loop here. And we know we've seen the special thing that will tell us the index of each of our items. All right, that's going to be our friend enumerate, right? So if we put enumerate in front of this, that will give us the item plus the index number. So remember at the beginning of our for, we're getting 2 items now, index and then our item. So let's say index. I'm going to do IDX, the shorthand version of it. So we have our index and our item number. So now we can mess around with our formatting and our displaying of our items here. So to make it a little bit nicer, I'm going to do it this format wise. I'm going to do a string here. I'm going to say, let's display the number. I'm going to put parenthesis right there and then space, and then we'll display the item. And then we'll do dot format. All right, and then we'll say index and then item. So if we run this again now, you'll see that nothing is printing out because I need to go over to main and then run this. If you see now, our menu is really starting to take shape now. It's really looking good. All right, you don't have to format your menu this way. All right, you do not need to format your menu this way. You can use something else like attack, tilde, just a space, like you could use any character you want. I just did mine this way. All right. The big thing is you should be displaying some sort of number that corresponds with each item so people know what number corresponds with what. So when they want to select one of them, it's very easy for them to understand. All right. Very easy for them to understand. Does this make sense? Any questions so far? It's about time to go on break. So mess around with what we've done so far. All right, mess around with what we've done so far. If you have questions, make sure you drop them into the chat. We're gonna go on break for 3 to 5 minutes. When we come back, we'll continue chugging along here, and I'll answer any questions that you guys may have. All right. All right, I'll see you guys in 3 to 5 minutes. Alrighty. We are back, you guys. Ready to continue forward. But before we do, real quick, let me go ahead and interject and say that if you're not tracking, we are a nonprofit here based in the US of A. We do a lot of things for free, like 100 Days of Rootkit, where we're teaching you everything you need to know in order to get our comp sci cert. You can totally skip college. You don't need to go to any other boot camp. You get this cert, you're ready to go, you're trained up, and you're ready for the job market. And if you are certified, we will handhold you and help you get a job, all right? Additionally, on top of all this other free stuff, we have our blog going on, all right? We have our giveaway going on the blog section. You can click on our week 8 giveaway, go ahead and fill this out completely free. All you have to do is sub to things like our YouTube channel, follow our Twitch, etc., etc. You'll be entered to win some merch, right? Enter to win some merch. Additionally, if you like what we're doing, you can go over to the link in the description, or if you're on Twitch in our bio, there will be a link there for getting to our Streamlabs charity event. We are a nonprofit here in the US, so all donations are 100% tax deductible. So you can go ahead and help support us, because doing things for free is not cheap. It's very, very expensive. So you can go over here, and depending on how much you donate, you can unlock rewards like our stickers, our epic collab t-shirt, or this awesome sweater I got on right here with the Rootkit logo in the back. We have pillars on the way here, like streaming for 24 hours straight, shaving my head here live on stream, and the one no one really wants to see, shaving my beard. All right, that's just going to be weird. Additionally, all donations for the first 10K are being matched 1 for 1. All right, being matched 1 for 1. So if you donate $1, it's like you're donating $2 instead. All right, it's free real estate. Alrighty, let us get back into our code here, shall we? So we made a menu. Our menu is pretty much just an array. It's just an array. And we made a little function, a little method here in order to add items to that array. And then we also made another one here for how to display those items. And also, by the way, I didn't see any questions, so that's why we're chugging along here. Also, I'm in the events chat, so if you are a Discord premium member or a Patreon member, you can hop in there at any time and ask questions. So, very simple. Just a list that we can add items to, and we can, display the menu in a format we approve of, a format that we want. This is one of many ways to go about it, but we're just going about it this way. All right. So right here, our last item should display items. Let's go ahead and mark that as done. Look at that. 1 bit at a time, all right? You can knock out the easiest task first. That's just fine, all right? We're 50% done with this menu right now. All right, 50% done with this menu. It seemed like a lot at first, but we're chugging through it really easily right now. So in our main right here, we can see we're making our menu. After we make our main menu, we add the 3 items we want in our main menu. These are the 3 items we want, right? View scores, start game, quick game, yep. And then we're displaying the menu. All right, that's sweet so far. Now, how do we select an item here? We gotta select an item, right? How do we go about selecting an item? It's a great question. Before we move further, let's wrap this up into a main function, right? What I mean by that, let's do def main and then tab all this up, and then let's put our weird if statement here that we've seen everywhere else. If you don't remember how to make it, you can just go to another one of our, where is it at? It's in here, right? There we go. You can just go to another file and go ahead and copy and paste it. All right, go ahead and copy and paste it. You don't have to write it out from scratch. All right, copying and pasting is, it's free real estate in programming. All right, do it. Do it. You're just putting yourself at a disadvantage if you're trying to make everything from scratch yourself. All right. So now we have more of a proper format here, so we won't run into any issues. So we're displaying our menu. We need to now accept some type of input for which item they want to select, and then you know, execute that item. So there's a bunch of ways we can go about this. The way we're going to go about this is we're going to get input from the user, and we're going to do it here in main, right? We're going to do it here in main, and then we're going to pass that input on to the main menu, right? For it to handle and then execute whatever item is supposed to get executed, all right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to say input, select, and select. I guess we'll just say select. And then let's save this off to user selection equals. So we're getting some input, we're saving a user selection, and then we want to pass this to the main menu in order for it to execute one of these items. All right, execute one of these items. What item it's going to be? I don't know. Let's make the logic here. So let's call this one def run item. All right, def run item. We'll do self. Additionally, we're going to need to know which item they're selecting. So let's say item. Let's call this item number. All right. I guess we could call this one. Oops, not this one. In here, our menu number, menu index. Let's call it menu index. All right. And let's call this one menu index. So in here, to execute that item, we haven't built the execution logic yet, but that's fine. We're taking things one bit at a time. We know they need to select something, and then we need to eventually figure out how to execute that thing. All right. Right now, we're just going to build the selecting stuff. All right. So all we're going to do is when they want to run an item, we're just going to print out what item that is. So menu items, and then menu index here, all right? Menu index here, all right? So we're just going to print out what item they selected. That's it, all right? That is it for right now. So we need to now add that here to our main program. So run item. So we go here and say run, main menu dot run item. And what item are they going to run? They're going to run the menu index, right? They're going to run the menu index. If we run this now, you'll see that we get welcome to my dungeon game. 0, 1, and 2 correlate to start game, scores, and quit. All right. So if I say 1, it should just print out scores, right? Or if I say 2, it should print out quit. If I say 0, it should say start game. So let me do a 1, press enter, and we have an error. We have an error. That's fine, right? That's fine. We're going to then read our error message and figure out what's going on. Type error. All right. List indices must be integers or slices, not strings. Any idea on why we're getting this error? So indices are a fancy way of saying indexes, all right? So the list index needs to be an integer or a slice. What are slices? It's the colon, remember, for arrays. We can use colon inside of it. Not a string. Why is it saying a string? We have the menu index here, right? We do. But remember, input always returns a string back, and we have to do formatting on that item to make sure it's an integer. Additionally, we're getting input right here from the user. And anytime we get input from the user, what are we supposed to do? Right, we're supposed to sanitize it, right? We got to sanitize it. We got to clean it, make sure that it's good input that we want to allow and nothing that's going to break our program. So they should only be selecting a number between whatever our menu is composed of, in this case 0 and 2, and it should be a number. It should be nothing else but a number. So if we go over here, let's do some of our sanitation, shall we? Why right here? Why not in our main program? That's a great question. Our main program's responsibility is for stitching together and running the game, right? It's the orchestrator, right? It grabs items from everywhere and stitches them together so they run, all right? So it's going to manage executing the main menu. It might get some input from the user and then pass it on to the main menu. It may then run the game loop, and a part of that, it will facilitate maybe what's going on inside the game loop. But it's not actually going to be doing any type of cleaning or anything like crazy within itself. That's the responsibility of the objects themselves, like the main menu. The main menu is responsible for cleaning data that it's ingesting, right? Data that it's taking in, data that's being passed to it. So this menu index. So we're responsible to clean and verify this is the correct data. So what we're going to do here is do some cleaning. Now we know it's a string and we want to cast it to an int, all right? So we could solve this simply by saying menu index is equal to int menu index. But remember, they might be malicious to us. They might give us some wrong input. So this will error out, right? This will error out. So to handle it, there's several ways we can go about that, all right? There's several ways we can go about handling this. One would be, we can say menu index, which is going to be a string, and this is being no bueno. So if you ever do a dot and you see it's not coming up, it's because Python doesn't know what type this variable is. And if we hover over it, it says right here, any. All right, any means it doesn't know what type it is. So doing something like typing in your code for your parameters here can be very beneficial for you for multiple reasons. How do we do typing again? Colon and then string. Sorry. And we might as well do it here on text. All right. So it's very transparent on what this is going to end up being. All right. So we're expecting a string. There's the dot is digit. All right. That will tell us whether it's a digit. If you remember that from earlier, this will return a true or false. So if it is a digit, then things are good. Then we can go ahead and print this stuff out. All right, we can go ahead and print this stuff out. This is one way to go about it. All right, this is one way to go about it. So let's go about it this way for now. All right, and we'll see if we run into any issues. Once we make it into an integer, perfect. We need to make sure we're only accepting valid input between whatever selectable items there are. In our case, 0 through 2. So how can we go about this? Well, we can do another if statement and say if our menu index, which is now an integer, is in, all right, if it's in the range of 0 to what? 0 will always be the first item. So we can do, if we don't know how long the list could be at any point, we can say, self.menu items, and then wrap that up and get the length of it. All right. So let's run through what's going on here for a second. So if, all right, there we go. So let's run through this again. We are getting some string. Why a string? Because raw input is always going to be a string, all right? Raw input is always going to be a string. The first thing we need to do is make sure that what they gave us was a digit. So we have an if statement here to see if they gave us a digit or not. If they did give us a digit, we can do our casting here because we know it's safe to do our casting and it's not going to throw an error. After we do our casting, we need to make sure they gave us a valid number that's between 0 and however long our menu list is. All right. So our menu, we don't know how long it could be. So we need to get the length of how long our menu is, which is menu items will tell us how long our menu is. So if the number they chose is in the range of 0 to whatever maximum number there is, then we can go ahead and print this out. Right? We can go ahead and print this out. All right. So let's go ahead and run through this again and see if it's working. So if we go to our main and we do a run here, we say 0, we get start game printing out. If we run this again and we do a 1, score prints out. If we run this again and do a 2, quit prints out. If we run this again and do a 3, nothing prints out. If we run this again and do bad input, nothing prints out. So it looks like we didn't get any errors. So it looks like everything is running good. Everything is running successfully. Now some people, again, there's lots of ways to go about this. Some people might say you should just put input inside of this run item function here. You could do that. We're not going to, because I don't agree with that. I think you lose diversification in what you can potentially do, because maybe I want to select an item by not getting input, all right? Without getting input from a user. If I add this input inside of run item, I lose that ability. Or I have to go in to here and add more code in order to allow for that option. So we're just gonna do it this way, all right? Because I like my mains to do a lot of the stitching together, a lot of the collecting of input, and then we handle it here. But it's up to every person. There's a million ways to program out every situation. All right, any questions so far? So we're missing a lot of comments here. So make sure you're adding comments through your code. I'm not adding any right now because I'm going to go through and add them after the stream. So our supporters in the supporters chat will get them. If you want to get the code with the comments and documentation, you can join supporter chat by subscribing to our Patreon or Discord Premium. Right? But you guys, I'm telling you exactly what's going on here. We're going through it together. So make sure you're leaving lots of comments throughout your code. So when you look at this, you're not just confused and it looks like gibberish. You can kind of understand what might be going on here. All right. So items should be selectable. That's pretty much done, right? We can select items on our menu list. All right. We can select items on our menu list. They're not executable yet, but that's a different task. All right. That's a different task. Now, if you are writing tasks down here that are tasks that you need to do, and you may have not chopped them up small enough and you didn't figure that fact out till you started doing that task, there's nothing stopping you to doing that after the fact. You can always go in here in your list of to-do items and add new items if you find out the one that you made was a little too big, right? Because again, remember, we want to be taking everything one bit at a time. So chopping it up as small as possible and taking it one bit at a time. All right. So you can always add more and chop things up after the fact. The last step we need to do here is to make these items truly executable. Truly executable. All right. How do we do that? That's interesting problem. There are a couple ways you can go about it. I'm going to show you guys one way I go about it, and this is more so a pro gamer move. I unless you guys Googled this and found it on the interwebs, at least from like a new dev stance, I wouldn't really expect. I would be very impressed if you guys were able to think of this way out of the box. Now, I've given hints and clues about how to make things potentially executable or do it this way through the whole session. All right. In particular, I've mentioned constantly, if you have a function and you want to have it actually activate and execute, you must add the parentheses. All right, you must add these parentheses here for, whoops, what have I done? For it to actually run and to actually execute. If you don't add them there, they won't execute, they won't run. They're just going to act like a variable. Some of you guys have seen this. Some of you guys have seen this. For example, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and, whoops. Let's go ahead and remove the parentheses off display menu. So the menu is no longer going to display. And instead, let's print display menu. Some of you guys have seen this on accident or on purpose. When you print a function, which is like an action, all right, and you don't include those parentheses, you'll see this big thing get printed out. All right, this big thing. This is basically a reference, all right, a pointer to where you need to execute this function. It's not executing them. This is just it showing you where this code is stored and where it's ready and primed to take an action. The action never gets done until you add those parentheses. So it's kind of like in a dormant state per se. Knowing this, we can use that to our advantage to make a selectable menu. All right, what do I mean by that? Well, right now, to make a selectable and activatable menu, we have all the components we need so far. We just need to do some very light modification to our add menu here, our add menu item. Because right now we're adding a string, but we're not adding what we want to execute, all right? So if we add, if we allow for adding a second item here, so we have our text here, and we want to add a second item, which will be the function we want to execute, we can then add this to our menu items. So when we add it to our menu items, we won't be just adding text, but we don't want to do just text in something like text, comma, function, all right? We want these to be kind of grouped together, all right? So we'll make this into another list where they're grouped together. So we have text and we have function, all right? We have text and we have function. Another way you could go about this is to make another list here called menu functions equals that. And if you have that, you don't need to do a array here or a list here. You could add a second line of menu items dot menu functions dot append and then function. Both are valid. Both would work. You just need to now make sure when it's like this that you keep both of these in check, synchronized when you use them later on here, all right? You can go about them either way. That's just fine. I'm going to use it like this. So now we need to allow a second item, right? A second item. We have text and now we need a function. So for our functions here, we can use any function we want, all right? Any function we want. For starting out, let's do something like print, all right? Now, if you try to do print like this and say game is starting, this will not work, all right? Because this is performing the action right here. It is running the action right here. And we can actually see this. Let's go ahead and finish up the modification on the rest of our stuff here. So I'm just gonna do empty prints on these ones. All this is gonna do is print a new line. Right, it's going to be just empty and a new line. If we then run this right now, oops, clear, you're going to see some odd behavior happen, right? Some odd behavior happen. Game is starting gets printed out. Then we have a blank line and a blank line, and then we have a select. Things are all types of broken. All types of messed up. It's because you're performing the action immediately right here. We don't want to perform the action yet. we only want to pass what action we want to execute, what action we want to perform at a later time, at a later date. All right, so you have to remove these parentheses here. Quit here, we don't want print, we want to do exit, right? Remember exit, this will end your game, your code immediately. We want to have that for quit, all right? Except again, we don't want the parentheses. If we rerun this now, you'll see that we don't get all of that weird printout. Our menu's not printing because we accidentally removed our menu print line here. So don't worry about that. We'll get to it in a second. But you'll see none of these are executing right now. None of these are executing right now. This is good. This is great. Print is probably not what you want right here. All right, we just have it here right now as a placeholder. We'll put something else that we want for starting the game here at a later time. We just want something here to be a placeholder. You could have print, you could have exit across all of these. That's fine. You just want something as a placeholder. All right. So now we got to go back to our class. We have some adjustments we need to make. What are those adjustments? Well, now every item is technically a list. So when we try to print this item, we're going to print this list with text and the function in it. We don't want to do that. We just want to print our text, which is the first item in this list. So here in our display menu, every time we get an item right now, it's going to be both of these. We just want the first item. So we're going to say right here, a 0. So if we try to go back here and do main menu, menu.display menu, and we rerun this, it should look, I don't know why it keeps, it should look like we're back to normal, right? I didn't show you guys what it looked like before, so let me remove that little bit right here and rerun it. This is what it looked like before, right? This is what it looked like before, because now in our menu here, we're appending the text and a function in a list. So you're going to see a list with the text and the function in here, all right? Which is not what we want to have. So that's why, again, we're going to get the first item in each one of these items. We're going to get the first one, which is going to be the start game, right? And the scores and the quit. So if we rerun this, you'll see everything's back to normal. All right. That was the first adjustment we need to make. Now we need to adjust run item here. We need to adjust run item to execute, to actually run the function that we're passing through, that in its dormant state, right? How do we go about this? Great question. We've already done all of the work here. We're getting right here the individual items that we want, this row, this text function, all right? The function we want to execute, if 0 was the text, 1 is going to be the function. So we can put a new line here. We can keep our print here just so we can visually see a little bit more what's going on. And now this time we'll do self dot, and let's just copy our code right here. Now, technically we need to modify this print right here because it's going to print both the text and the function, this whole line right here. So we need to go here and do a 0. So that way we're only printing the text. Right here, we want the function, which is the second part. So we can put a 1 right here. So let's see this. Let's see what happens when we do it like this, all right? If we now run this, our main here, and we say something like quit, because quit should, well, let's not do quit. Let's do start game. You'll see that we're not really quite sure what's going on. Start game printed out, but we didn't see any secondary print happen because we didn't execute the function yet. All right, we didn't execute the function yet. This is our function though. If we print this out and rerun this, you'll see that right here it says this is our function. This is our built-in function, right? So that print function is now stored inside of this big old variable, all right? The reference to it. Remember, again, to activate a function, you have to have those parentheses. You have to add those parentheses. Where do we add those parentheses? Well, just like all the functions, we add it at the end. I know, this looks weird. This doesn't look like the normal print and then like this. But you gotta remember, when I say a variable is a placeholder for some data, it doesn't matter what that data is. That data is just data, all right? That data is just data. Print is a variable that stores a function inside of it, all right? And anytime we want to execute that function, we need to use the parentheses, all right? We need to use the parentheses. If we run this right now, you'll see that it is now working. So if we do 0, you'll see we get this print. It's just going to be a blank print with nothing in it, right? If we want to see something in it, we can put parentheses in here and put some text and rerun this, and we run it again, and you'll see some code is printed out here. All right, code is printed out here. So again, everything is just a variable. All right, you can have an integer as a variable. You can have a floating point value as a variable, a list as a variable, a string as a variable. A function is just a variable that has the possibility of having parentheses afterwards in order to make it happen. All right, if you don't do that, it will not run. So when we pass it in as this dormant state, it's not actually running, right? It's not actually running. Any questions on that? Because that can be a little confusing to people. And again, we showed it the other day. I'm going to comment this out just for a second, just to show this concept real quick. Print hello. All right, print hello. If I run this, it should say hello. Look at that. It says hello. Nothing complicated right now. Print hello. But like I said, everything is just a variable. And at any time you can replace any variable you want in Python. So if I said instead I want print to be equal to 5. What's the answer of life? 42. There we go. And now we try to run this, you'll see an error happens because print is no longer referring to a function, right? We completely broke print. Print is just a pre-made built-in variable that has function code attached to it. A function code, some function code attached to it. We can additionally do things like make a new function called print that instead, I don't know, return 42. All right. So now if we run print, you'll see that nothing will show up on the command line anymore. And I can't even show you guys that it's returning 42 because there's literally no way to print things anymore. If I go in here and I say some text here, it's going to error out because this doesn't allow you to pass any arguments in, right? This doesn't allow you to pass any arguments in. So since we're passing an argument in right here, it's freaking out and saying, what do you mean? I'm not supposed to take any arguments. All right. So remember, everything's just a variable, right? Everything is just a variable, and we can use that to our advantage in our menu here by performing this logic that we're doing, right? Hopefully that wasn't too brain-breaking or confusing for you guys, right? But now we've technically finished and accomplished all 4 of our to-do items here for our menu class, and we have a fully functional menu. We have a menu that class that will spawn a brand new menu. This first one we're calling our main menu. we're adding some new items to our main menu, which is going to be start game and then some type of function for starting the game, which we haven't built yet. So we just have print there as a placeholder. Scores, which we haven't built that out yet. So we have print here as a placeholder, and quit, which we're just going to use the built-in exit function for that. We have a way to display the menus through our object. We get some input from the user, and then we give that to the main menu to figure out what to do with in order to run an item and have the game actually execute, right? Have the game actually execute and do a thing. What questions do you guys have here, right? Like I said, this is a very overkill menu class. It's very overkill, but it really shows off the power of classes. Gets us more examples of classes. We can see classes used more. Additionally, we're teaching a new concept here, which is, I mean, it's not really a new concept per se, but just kind of fortifying the concept of variables and functions and how they're just variables. They're in a dormant state unless you add the parentheses at the end of them, right? And they don't need to be called print, right? As you can see here, this is no longer called print because that doesn't matter. This is just a different variable that's storing the same data, because variables just store data, right? They're a placeholder for some type of data. Can you switch to the menu? Yes, I'm on it right now. There we go. This string right here, not required, right? This is, we should actually just remove that. There we go. All right, what questions do you guys have? All right, what questions do we have? I'm gonna pull the design doc up next. There we go. So if we look here at our design doc, we need the game to start. We display a main menu, and now we're ready to start the game loop, right? So we need to start the game loop. So we can do that starting tomorrow, right? Starting tomorrow, we'll make our basic game loop, and we'll figure out what we'll do for our game loop, and we'll go from there. Now, our game loop, we can't just have as a while loop just anywhere. Because of the way we have our main menu set up, where it's trying to execute a function in order to start the game, that means that our main game loop will need to be a function. So we're going to need to wrap it in a function. It can't just all live here in main. We can do that a couple of ways. We can have it as a function, an actual function here, or we can have it a part of a object called the game master object, or the game object, or the game loop object that will be in charge of conducting the game, right? It will be in charge of conducting the game. You guys have kind of seen this concept before if you've played games. For example, games like, I think Civilization does it also. Civ, Stellaris, Fortnite, League of Legends, they all have a launcher, right? They all have a launcher that launches first, and you can do a bunch of stuff in the launcher. That's effectively kind of what we're doing here. We have a launcher that happens, and when we want to actually play the game and it actually loads up the game, you leave the launcher and you execute the game itself, and that will load up. So that's kind of what we're doing here with our print. We're executing some logic that's not a part of the original main in order to load up the game. Alrighty, what other questions you guys have before we call this a day? again, to kind of put your mind at peace, this is a more complex way to going about the menu. An alternative that would be just as fine, especially for beginners, is just doing a lot of print statements, right? You can do a lot of print statements and say like item 1 is start game. All right. Item 2, item 3, and then input, input, select, selection equals, and then you could have if selection is equal to 1. Remember, this is a string, so imagine I put my logic for making it into an integer between these lines for a second, and then this would be, you know, start game. This would be elif. This would be else, or sorry, elif. And you can have an else print. Well, I guess we wouldn't have it with our sanitation. This would be, so this one would be scores. This one would be quit. Scores, quit, and then we would run exit right here. We would run print right here. We would run print right here. This is an alternative way that's way more basic. All right, way more basic than what we did here. This is not using classes. This would work. All right, the only thing we're missing right here is literally our to-do sanitation. So our little sanitation where we change this into an integer and also make sure it's a valid item they can select. All right, this is completely valid too. You can see our print, and exit right here. That's the same as our print, exit right here. All right, these ones we need to store in a dormant state at first. These ones we can immediately activate when it's selected. All right, this is completely valid. All right, you can go about it this way also. There's nothing wrong with this way. It's just potentially less modular. What does that mean? This isn't as reusable. All right, with our menu class, it's made very open and generic, where we can use it here as a main menu, but we can use the same code now later on for our menu in our like player menu inventory system when he needs to select, I don't know, bandages or whatever we need to do. It's open enough where it can be used in both of those parts. So this would be easy at first, but remember, we want to be as lazy as possible. So doing something a little bit more like this might seem like a lot of extra work, but it's actually ensuring we can be more lazy later, right? We can be more lazy later, because we would have to rewrite this whole thing for every other player menu. Wait, how would those two else if statements work? Oh, sorry, I messed this up. Well, I guess it goes from 0 to 2, right? Sorry. Sorry, I forgot to do that. There you go. So this was how it would work. Yeah, this I just threw up here real quick so you guys can see it in an alternate way, right? This is just so you guys can see it in an alternate way. And if I run this, it will work. You can see, well, to even make it more closer, let me go ahead and throw a parenthesis here, here, and here. And if I run this, you'll see it will, I guess we got to do, let me do our selection equals int selection. All right, this will error out and allows me to do a bunch of invalid stuff. This isn't a full sanitation, but this will kind of show the point. Is this is completely a valid different way of us doing it. If I want to do something like scores, I press 2. Okay, that's right. That says 1, 2, and 3. Let let me change this to 0, 1, and 2. All right. If I run this again, there we go. If I say 1, press enter, it says scores. Right? So we selected scores. So this works exactly to the T, perfectly exactly the same way as this one does. There's pretty much no difference between this and what we did here. The only difference is that this is future proof. It's modular and future proof ready. This one only runs once in this configuration period, and if we want more menus later with variations, this will not be compatible. We have to copy this, paste it, make our code longer, and do tweaks and alterations. All right? So again, completely valid. You can do it this way. This is way simpler. This makes more sense, especially for for beginners. That's fine. If you go to college, if you go to another boot camp, they'll tell you just do it this way. They'll teach it to you. They'll grade you. They'll say, "A-okay, you're passed this way." We're better than that. We want you guys to be better than that. So we're going to show you guys the best way to potentially do it, right? One of the best ways to potentially do it. And that's thinking ahead, right? We want you to be lazy. We want you guys to have an easy job programming. So you got to make sure you think ahead. This just takes time, right? This just takes time. This is normal for you to think about it and go about it, all right? That is okay. We want you to keep practicing on your own time so you can get to thinking like this, right? And that you can be comfortable programming like this, right? The only way you can get comfortable doing that is by programming this stuff, right? So make sure you're programming this stuff outside of our teachings, right? Outside of our teachings. So the challenge is going to be for you guys. I'll comment this out and re-comment this. I want you guys to take this code and I want you to mod it. I want you to modify this so for example, right now, if I run this and I want to do scores and I say 1 and I press enter, scores will run the print statement, but the print statement has nothing inside of it, right? It has nothing inside of it right here at all. So I want you guys to modify it so I can put a second parameter, or I guess this would be a third parameter here, and I can say print this, and I can say print this stuff also. And this one, I don't pass anything to it, and it shouldn't error out. What will happen is when I now select scores here, it should be the equivalent of seeing this on the, whoops, I gotta uncomment this. It should be the equivalent of seeing this happen on the command line. This stuff, print this stuff also, all right? So me doing this should be the equivalent of me seeing this being printed out, right? This will error right now in its current state, so I want you guys to modify this code, this menu, in order to allow for this. What is going to be required for you to do this? I will give you some hints, right? So you're not completely lost in the sauce. You know you need a third item to take in at add menu. You also know that for some things that we don't want or don't require arguments, we don't want to accept anything. So this should be obvious for you that you need what? There's two types of arguments you can have for functions, right? There's the required ones and the optional ones. That's right. So if you're going to go to add menu here and modify it to allow for another item, it should most likely be a optional item, right? So you need to make it an optional argument. You need to add an optional argument here. Additionally, when you're doing the printing or the executing here, you should be looking and seeing if there is a argument. You should try to stuff it in these parentheses right here, right? If there is no argument, you shouldn't be trying to stuff it into the parentheses here, or else you run the potential issue of raising up an error, because if a function isn't wanting a certain item, you'll get an error like this, right? Saying that you gave it too many arguments. So you need potentially an if statement. So far, the hints are you need to add another argument that's going to be optional, and when executing these at this line, you may need an if statement to patrol the logic of whether you should stuff this with the data that was put right here or not stuff it at all, right? Those are your guys' hints. It's pretty well laid out, right? Any questions on that? And that will be the end of our the end of the stream today. I'm gonna wait 1-ish minutes, 30 seconds, 1 minute for any questions to roll through, and then we'll call it a day. Again, if you're a Discord Premium or Patreon member, you're going to get the code right now as it is with a bunch of comments in it. For the assignments, you need to modify it. You can go back to the YouTube video, look at where I talked about it, and then try to modify it to allow it. Confused, but I'll figure it out. Good. Try to figure it out. If you do have questions later on, just ask in the 100 Days of Rootkit chat, all right? We're going to be in there. There's only like 2-3 lines of code you would have to add in order to get this working. 3, 4, just literally a couple lines of code to get this working, all right? To get this working. Mess around, break things. We'll show tomorrow. We'll show tomorrow on how you can go about doing what I'm asking for here, all right? All right, sweet. All right, that's all I got for you guys. So I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next one.